Well, Governor Ralph Northam calling a special session next Thursday to redraw legislative districts that a federal court had found to be racially gerrymandered. Many are right here in Hampton Roads, but redrawing new boundaries could swing political control in the state to Democrats. 13 News Now reporter Robert Boyd explains how.
Well, Stephen, today we spoke with a political science professor who said some of our past state elections have been so close that moving district lines just a little bit could make all the difference when it comes to who gets elected. You're looking at a youth football practice in Chesapeake, which is part of District 77. This is one of 11 districts in Virginia and 6 in Hampton Roads that could soon be redrawn. Delegate Cliff Hayes is in full support.
And the crux of the matter is that according to race, there has to be a redrawing of the districts in such a way that is done in a fair and equitable manner.
Earlier this year, a federal court ordered Virginia to redraw these 11 districts following a lawsuit that claimed the districts were racially gerrymandered.
And to do nothing, I think, would be a huge mistake and a huge opportunity that's missed. The courts have directed us to go back, reconsider the way that 2011 was drawn.
Old Dominion University political science professor Jesse Richmond says Democrats have a legit concern.
In the last election, 2017, Democrats won some 54% of the statewide vote in the House of Delegates races, but they ended up capturing less than half of the seats.
Richmond says one of the reasons this happens is because there are too many African Americans in one district and not enough in the surrounding districts, and the majority of African Americans vote Democrat.
But you can't simply divide up a minority population such that they have little chance of getting effective representation.
Richmond says redrawing the districts could spread out some of those Democratic votes.
Give Democrats a better chance to hold on to their gains from the last election, and B, to give Democrats perhaps some pickup opportunities for additional seats in the next election.
Republican leaders have already appealed this court decision.
The best outcome for Republicans is that the appeals lead to this court decision being overturned. And so we keep the existing districts, don't redraw anything.
Now, the court ordered that these new boundaries be drawn by October 30th, and they would go into effect for the 2019 election. Robert Boyd, 13 News Now.